The train had stopped 2 stations too early. No warning. No explanation. Just a sudden hiss of brakes, and a voice over the intercom that cracked with static. End of the line. All passengers must exit here. Elena blinked, lifting her head from the window where her breath had fogged the glass. The forest outside was deep, dark green against a graying sky, thick trunks vanishing into shadow. She gathered her bag and stepped off, confused. There was no platform. No sign. No road. Only a narrow dirt path that led into the woods. And when she turned to ask the conductor why they had stopped, the train was already pulling away. Elena stood alone. Her phone had no service. The air felt thick, like it was waiting. Not humid. Just too quiet. She looked at the path. It wasn't on the map she had printed. But it was the only thing in front of her. She started walking. The ground was soft, covered in old needles from the pine trees above. Everything was green and brown and silent. No birds. No wind. Only the sound of her footsteps and the occasional creak of the trees, as if they were listening to each other. After a while, she stopped to check her compass. The needle spun once, then pointed left. She frowned. That wasn't right. The sun was behind her. She should have been heading north. She tapped the compass. It spun again. That was the first time she felt it. A chill on the back of her neck. The feeling that someone was watching her. Not from behind. Not from above. From beneath. She shook it off. Get to the next road, she whispered to herself. There's always a road. But the path didn't lead to a road. It twisted and narrowed and dipped, and soon she realized the trees were no longer pine. They were older. Their bark gray. Their limbs twisted. And their roots seemed to move slightly when she looked away. Then she saw it. A wooden sign, half covered in moss. Elder Hollow. Population. The number was smeared. Not faded, smeared. Like someone had wiped it with a wet hand. Beyond the sign, the path became a hollow, a shallow dip in the forest, where the trees thinned and the light grew dim. Elena hesitated. She looked back. There was no path behind her. Only trees. All the same. All silent. So she kept walking. In the hollow were a few buildings. Old. Rotting. Empty. At least, they looked empty. But from one of them, a long, low cabin with a porch that sagged, she heard something. Not a voice. Not music. A chair. Rocking. Back and forth. Back and forth. Even though the wind had not moved since she stepped into the forest. She stepped onto the porch. The chair stopped. The porch creaked under Elena's weight. Not loudly. But enough. The rocking chair no longer moved. It sat still, perfectly centered before a door with peeling green paint. She stepped closer, and noticed something odd. The wood beneath the chair looked newer. No moss. No dust. Like it had been scrubbed. Or worn down by movement. She knocked. No answer. Of course. But the door wasn't locked. In fact, the knob was warm. She hesitated. Then turned it. The inside smelled like pine and something else. Old fabric? Damp stone? No, not stone. Earth. It smelled like earth beneath earth, like a place that had been buried and dug up again. The room was empty. Dust on the windows. Shelves of cracked dishes and yellowed books. A table with 2 chairs. But only one looked like it had been used. Its cushion was flat. Its wood rubbed bare at the edges. And a single mug sat in front of it, still half full. Elena stepped farther in. A floorboard moaned softly. And behind her, the door closed. Not slammed. Just clicked shut. She turned. The chair was rocking again. Slowly. Deliberately. Back and forth. Back and forth. She moved to the door. Grabbed the knob. It wouldn't turn. Nope, she said out loud, heart quickening. Not staying here. She backed away from the door, from the chair, from the growing chill in the air. That's when she noticed it. A mirror on the far wall. Oval-shaped. Framed in black. It was clean. Too clean. And in it, she saw something. Not her. Not directly. Behind her. A figure. Tall. Still. Standing just outside the window. But when she turned, nothing was there. She looked back at the mirror. The figure was closer now. Inside the room. Its shape hard to describe. Too thin. Too long. Like it had been made for a different kind of world. Its face was turned downward. Its hands just hung. Waiting. Elena backed toward the kitchen. She kept her eyes on the mirror. But the figure didn't move. Until she blinked. Now it was closer. Only a few feet away. Still looking down. Still not touching her. But present. Heavy. The room darkened slightly. No lights turned off, but everything felt one shade dimmer. And then, she heard it. A whisper. From beneath the floorboards. Don't wake it. The whisper came again. Not louder, closer. It listens when the trees stop breathing. Elena's breath caught. The figure in the mirror was now gone. So was the reflection of the room. The mirror showed only trees. Tall. Silent. But in those trees, shapes. Watching. Still. Then a voice, not a whisper, echoed gently behind her. A woman's voice. Soft. Old. You shouldn't have followed the path. Elena turned. An old woman stood at the top of the stairs. Eyes pale. Skin like bark. Clothes covered in dry leaves. She pointed at Elena's chest. You've brought it with you now. Elena stood frozen. The old woman didn't move from the top of the stairs. She didn't blink. She didn't breathe. Not in the way people do. And yet, she was alive. Or close enough. What do you mean I brought it with me? Elena asked, voice thin. The woman tilted her head. The forest marked you. It always marks one who strays. She stepped down one creaking stair. You didn't follow a path. You followed a memory. Another step. Now it follows you. Elena backed away until her hand hit the cold counter behind her. Who are you? The woman didn't answer at first. Then, she said. I keep the breath from waking. The old woman walked past Elena like a breeze, light, silent, and unsettling. She opened a drawer and pulled out a small bundle wrapped in black cloth. Inside, a rusted bell. Tiny. Cracked. Stained. Ring it, she said. If you hear it moving too close. It doesn't like reminders. Elena hesitated before taking the bell. Her fingers tingled the moment it touched her skin. A strange feeling, like déjà vu, mixed with sorrow. What is it? The woman didn't reply. She walked to the mirror and placed a hand on its frame. The surface shimmered, showing not the room, but the forest at night. The trees weren't still anymore. They breathed. Slow. Wide. Like lungs too big for the earth. You'll want to leave, the woman said. But you'll only find deeper woods. She turned to Elena. Unless you find the other bell. Other bell? Elena asked. The woman nodded once. The first bell calls. The second lets you walk. You'll know it when you hear it. But you can only hear it once. The mirror went dark. The woman turned away. Walked into the hallway. And vanished. No sound. No shadow. Only a faint smell of dried leaves and smoke. Elena stepped outside. The air had grown colder. And the forest, denser. Where there had been open space behind the house, there was now more forest. And the trees looked closer together than before. She started walking. The bell tucked in her pocket. Her breath slow. Each footstep felt noticed. Not watched, counted. She reached a fork in the path. One side looked well trodden. The other was overgrown, tangled with roots and hanging moss. Something told her. The clear path leads in circles. The wild one leads deeper. She took the wild path. Soon, she came to a grove. Dead leaves covered the ground like scales. And in the center stood a tree. Huge, hollow, blackened at its base. A shape sat inside the hollow. A chair. Not empty. A man. Still. Silent. Face hidden under a hood. He raised his hand. In it, another bell. Slightly larger. Golden. Clean. He didn't speak. Only rang it once. The sound didn't echo. It folded. Like cloth. It settled around Elena, warm and heavy. And for a moment, a very brief moment, the forest seemed afraid. Then, the man vanished. No sound. No trace. But the bell was on the ground. Waiting. The second bell was warm. Not from sunlight, the grove had no light. Not from fire, there was no heat. But it pulsed with a quiet energy. Alive, but not living. Elena knelt and picked it up. The moment her fingers curled around the gold, the sound of the forest changed. Subtle. The hush grew deeper. Like something had stopped to listen. She turned in a slow circle. The path she had come from was gone. No trail. Only trees. And their trunks were no longer still. They leaned. Not all at once, just slightly. As if bracing. As if waiting. She rang the bell. Not loudly. Just once. Ting. Nothing happened. Then. A single pine needle fell from above and landed in her palm. It vibrated. Softly. And pointed, like a compass. To the left. Elena followed the direction. Every few minutes, she'd stop and ring the bell again. Each time, another needle would fall. Always pointing. Always guiding. She didn't know where it was leading. But she no longer had a choice. The bell in her pocket, the cracked one, began to hum in response. 2 bells. One old. One true. Both awake. The deeper she walked, the more the forest changed. The trees no longer had bark. They had skin. Pale. Smooth. Veined. She didn't touch them. But they exhaled, in long slow gusts, warm against her cheek. And in the distance, whispers. Not words. But rhythm. As if the forest was chanting in its own language. Soon she reached a clearing. Perfectly round. Too perfect. At the center stood a stone well, deep, with no rope, no bucket. Around it, small carvings in the dirt. Circles. Spirals. Bell shapes. Eyes. All drawn recently. Elena knelt by one. Still damp. As if the finger that carved it had only just pulled away. Then she heard the voice again. The same one from the cabin mirror. Whispered. Right behind her ear. It lives, below. She turned sharply. No one there. But the well gave off a smell. Not rot. Not earth. Something older than both. Like ancient water and rusted air. She looked inside. Black. Endless. Then. A single eye opened at the bottom. Not hers. Not human. It blinked once. The air pulled inward. And every tree at the edge of the clearing bent closer. She dropped the cracked bell down the well. The forest froze. And for the first time, it spoke. Do you remember now? Elena didn't answer. But in her mind, old images stirred. A train that had never arrived. A family she couldn't remember the faces of. A lullaby made of wind. And a cabin door that had never really closed. She rang the golden bell again. This time, the sound pushed back. The trees recoiled. The well shivered. And something climbed out. Not a creature. A shape. Tall. Thin. Made of the same air as the forest's breath. It looked at her. Not with eyes, with presence. And Elena understood. This forest wasn't haunted. It was trapped. It had been sleeping for centuries. And she had walked in, wearing its dream. The shape stood above the well. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. But the trees bent toward it, not in fear, not in worship, but in recognition. Like it was the trunk from which they'd all once grown. Elena clutched the golden bell. It no longer felt warm. It felt aware. Almost as if it were watching, too. You're not lost, a voice said. Not aloud. Inside her. A thought, not her own. You were chosen. The air around her thickened, like trying to walk through honeyed fog. The forest wasn't resisting her. It was testing her. Not out of cruelty. But because it remembered. And memory, here, was alive. Suddenly, she saw it again, the train. Not from hours ago. From years. She was younger. Standing on a different platform. Holding a small wooden bell on a string. A woman, not the one from the cabin, but older, thinner, knelt in front of her. Whispering. If you ever hear the forest breathing, follow it. Then the vision broke. She was back in the clearing. The watcher tilted slightly. Not stepping forward. Not looming. Just being. And then. It split. Not apart. Open. Like a curtain of smoke pulled back. Behind it, a doorway. Not stone. Not wood. Just space, shaped like a frame. Beyond it, more forest. But wrong. Upside down trees. Roots in the sky. Footsteps that echoed before they landed. Elena stepped forward. The trees around the clearing began to shudder, one by one. They weren't moving from wind. They were whispering through their bark. Let her pass. Let her remember. She crossed through the doorway. At once, sound returned. Birds she didn't recognize. Leaves rustling in patterns. The soft cry of something deep, deep underground. But strangest of all. She felt calm. Like something had stopped searching for her. And had simply, found. The forest in this place was not evil. But it was not kind. It was curious. Each branch turned as she passed. Not to watch, to understand. She walked for what felt like hours. There was no sun. No sky. Just light that moved when she moved. Then, a clearing. Another one. But not empty. At the center was a mirror. Tall. Framed in bones. And in it, herself. But not her now. Her, before. Before the train. Before the bells. Smiling. Holding a lantern. As she stepped closer, the mirror shimmered. Her reflection didn't follow her. It stayed in place. Smiling still. And then, softly, it whispered. It's time to wake the rest. The trees leaned in. All at once. Their shadows reached forward. Long thin. And they pulled the mirror inward, burying it in the ground. In its place. A wooden chest. She opened it. Inside, dozens of small bells. Each one different. Each one marked. Some with names. Some with symbols. Some with eyes. And at the bottom, a note. Take one. Then ring it for the next. Elena stared at the chest. The bells inside weren't identical. Some were small and silver, others were wooden and chipped. A few looked handmade, tied with bits of string or dyed ribbon. They weren't tools. They were stories. Each one, a memory. Each one, a person who had come before. And maybe, never left. She reached in and picked one at random. It was smooth, with faded paint. On the side, etched deeply. A spiral. Not a perfect one. More like a drawn breath, paused halfway through. She held it up. No sound. Until she thought of ringing it. And then, the forest responded. Not with noise. With motion. The trees tilted again. Not toward her, away. A path opened. Not carved, not cleared, revealed. Like it had always been there, but only for those who asked. Elena stepped through. Each step felt quieter than the last. Not because she walked softly, but because the forest was listening harder. She felt its attention, not as eyes, but as gravity. Every movement she made was pulled into it. Stored. Measured. Not judged, just held. Like the forest was adding her to its collection. She came to a tree that had no bark. Its trunk was made of woven roots, twisting upward into a wide canopy of silver leaves. Below it sat a figure. Not the watcher. A child. Still. Silent. Eyes closed. Holding a bell, identical to the one Elena carried. The child opened their eyes when she approached. They were not afraid. It's yours now, the child said, handing her the bell. Mine stopped working when I woke up. Elena blinked. You woke up? The child nodded. This place is a dream that forgets itself. If you stay too long, you don't remember why you came. But if you take a bell, you keep a name. Whose name? Elena asked. Yours. She accepted the bell. Suddenly, her name felt clearer. She hadn't realized it had grown distant. Hadn't noticed how long it had been since she'd thought it. Now it echoed in her head, simple, sharp. Elena. The forest grew quieter. Not empty, respectful. Like it understood something important had just happened. The child stood. Their form flickered, once, twice, and they faded into light. A breeze picked up, rustling the silver leaves. Elena turned. The path had changed again. Now it led downhill, deeper. And in the distance, a tower. Stone, broken at the top. Covered in ivy. And from its window, a light. Not a flame. A pulse. Slow. Rhythmic. Like a heartbeat buried in the sky. She made her way toward it. With each step, more bells chimed in the trees. Not loud. Not random. They rang in harmony. A pattern. A message. She couldn't understand it yet. But it felt like a welcome. Or a warning. Or both. As she reached the base of the tower, a wind blew through the forest. Not harsh. But certain. And behind her, the path vanished again. Not closed. Erased. The forest had let her come this far. But it would not let her return the same. And far above, the tower's light blinked once more, slow and steady. Calling her upward. The tower loomed before her. Its stones were worn smooth, not by wind, not by rain, but by time. Longer than time had names for. Before the forest had roots. Each block was covered in shallow carvings. Not letters. Not symbols. Marks. Scratches that repeated. Circles. Lines. Loops that doubled back into themselves like confused thoughts. And each mark pulsed faintly as she passed. The wooden door at the base opened with a whisper. Not because it was unlocked, but because it expected her. Inside, the stairs spiraled upward. There were no windows. No torches. But she could see. As if the tower carried its own glow, hidden in its spine. Each step up echoed faintly. Not down, up. Like something above her was mimicking the sound, 1 second later. She stopped to listen. And the echo stopped too. Halfway up, she found a bell. Set into the wall. Different than the others. This one was not handheld. It was part of the stone, fused. And beside it, carved deeply. When memory fails, let this ring for you. She didn't touch it. She didn't have to. Because suddenly, she remembered. Not a dream. A night. A real night. Long ago. She had come to this forest once as a child. Her mother held her hand. They had walked together through mist. And her mother had whispered stories about bells and mirrors and hollow paths. She remembered sitting by a fire in a cabin that didn't exist on any map. And her mother saying, "You'll come back when it's time. The forest always waits for its own." Now she understood. She hadn't been lured here. She had been summoned. Elena climbed the last few steps. At the top of the tower was a room with no ceiling. Only sky, dark and deep. The pulse she had seen from below came from a bell-shaped lantern, hanging in midair. It swung slowly, without wind. Below it, a table. And on the table, a book. Bound in bark. Pages made of pressed leaves. The book had no title. But as Elena touched it, words appeared on the cover. The ones who walked between. She opened it. Inside were names. Thousands. All written in different handwriting. Some delicate. Some harsh. Some just scratches. At the very end, a blank page. And beside it, a pen. Made of pine needle and thread. She understood what to do. She took the pen and wrote. Elena Gray. Brought the bell. Remembered the path. Walked with breath. Did not run. The book shimmered. And the bell lantern above her rang once, low and long. The sound rippled through the forest. Every tree paused. Every whisper hushed. And somewhere below, the hollow laughed. Not cruelly. Softly. Like something finally exhaled. She felt something shift in her chest. Not pain. A weight removed. Like she had been carrying someone else's silence, and finally set it down. The air changed. No longer heavy. No longer still. Just calm. And behind her, the stairs unwound, step by step, vanishing downward. The tower would not let her descend. But a doorway opened in the wall. Through it, a new forest. Brighter. Gentler. But not empty. Filled with bells. Hanging from branches. From roots. From the wind. And in the distance, a figure, waiting by a tree. Waving. Elena stepped through the doorway. The new forest was quieter, but not from silence. It was quiet like a warm room, or a deep lake. A place that held sound gently, rather than swallowed it. The bells hung everywhere. Some tiny, barely swaying in the breeze. Others large and still, wrapped in vines. Each one chimed softly, not when touched, but when passed. They didn't ring for everyone. Only when the forest wanted them to. She walked carefully. Every step was cushioned by moss and old memories. And the figure by the tree grew clearer. It wasn't the old woman. Nor the child. It was herself, or someone who had once been her. Wearing different clothes. Younger. Smiling with the kind of peace that only comes when you've remembered something true. "Do you know now?" the figure asked. Elena nodded. "Yes. You came because you were afraid you had forgotten. But the forgetting was part of it. You weren't lost. You were becoming." The two Elenas, the before and the after, stood side by side. Not merging. Not disappearing. Just existing at once. And for a brief moment, the forest pulsed with soft light. The same breath it had hidden for centuries. It wasn't haunted. It was grieving. Grieving every name that had never been spoken again. Grieving every bell that had been dropped and never rung. Grieving every traveler who ran instead of remembering. But Elena didn't run. She rang. She remembered. She wrote her name. And because of that, the forest could now sleep again. Not restlessly. But deeply. The figure beside her placed a small silver bell into her hand. "This one's for someone else. You'll know who." Elena turned to ask something, but the figure was gone. Blended into the tree bark, or maybe never there at all. She walked forward. No fear. The forest welcomed her not as a stranger, but as one of its own. The path wound down gently, leading not to the cabin, not to the well. But to the edge of the forest. Where trees gave way to fields. Where the air no longer hummed. She paused at the last tree. The silver bell in her hand glinted once, and then dimmed. Waiting for the next. And she stepped out into the morning. The world hadn't changed. The train still waited. The sky still turned. The air still carried birdsong. But Elena? She had walked with the forest's breath. And now she carried a piece of it in her. Quiet. Certain. Unseen. And deep in the woods behind her, the bells slowly stopped ringing. All except one. A single, cracked bell. Hung from a branch. Swaying gently. Waiting. For the next who forgets.